Are you doing studies but not getting any better? Are you bored out of your mind doing studies, which then kills your drive to do art? Look, we've all been there. I'm here today to help you figure out how to help yourself study in order to make your art better and not have it feel like such a chore. I'm Snowmew, and let's talk about how to learn. All right, so does this sound familiar? You sit down to draw something, you have this great idea in your head, and you start sketching and realize, oh my gosh, those arms look like sausage links. Look, anatomy's hard. There are things in art we need to study in order to increase our fundamental understanding so we can learn how to draw better. The next thing you find yourself doing is looking up tutorials on anatomy, tutorials on how to draw arms, what the heck the muscle structure is under all that skin, how does the flexing of the arms when your script is oh my gosh, there's so much information. You start doing some studies, you start learning some anatomy, and the next thing you know, you're pulling your hair out and you just cannot make yourself move forward. One of the most common reasons for this that people really don't understand because they think, oh, I'm not good at anatomy, or I don't understand this, I'll never understand this, is it's not that they'll never understand anatomy or that they find anatomy or whatever subject that they're studying that challenging. It's that they're not learning correctly. And it's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. Well, maybe the school systems, but that's because we never are taught how to learn. If you ask yourself, how do I learn? Can you genuinely answer that question? I know for me, I would constantly go over my notes in school, go over the lectures if I had access to them. I would go over the material again and again and again because I thought the repetition was something that helped me learn. It wasn't until much, much later that I realized that wasn't necessarily how I learned. That was just how I got access to the information. All right, let me back up. So for me, I've broken learning down into 3 things. I call them the AAAs. So we've got step 1, which is apply, where you do the thing, right? So for art, I want to draw this cool pose. I try to draw the thing, and my arms look horrible. Step 2 is assess. Well, I've noticed the arms look horrible. Do I know why the arms look horrible? Yeah, the anatomy's wrong. I kind of figured. Step 3 is absorb. So then I go look up those tutorials, look up those anatomy pictures, look up those reference photos, and try to figure out the information that I'm lacking in my brain that is preventing me from applying that knowledge correctly when I try to draw the thing I want to draw. So I try to think about the AAAs, apply, assess, and absorb as a cycle, right? Rinse and repeat. Learning is a cycle. I'm sure you've noticed when you try to absorb new information, if there's too much information, it's kind of overwhelming. You just cannot absorb it all. But the next time you revisit it, or the next time you go to class, you sort of cover what you covered before, and then you build on top of it. So there's a little bit of that repetition, like rereading your notes, and you get more and more familiar with the topic. You just had this example, Snow, where you draw the sausage arms, and then you go and study, and then I'm getting frustrated again. Like, what's the deal? Okay, hold on. There's a little bit of a mindset thing, and there's a little bit of an expectation thing. So, in this cycle, right, if you study one arm position or muscle group or whatever, you're going to take away a little bit more than you knew before, right? So then the next time you go to draw an arm, you will have retained some of that knowledge and you can apply that and it'll be a little bit better than your first attempt. So then it's on you again to assess what happened, figure out what is wrong, or at least what you think is wrong, go absorb some more information, maybe look up some more photos, whatever, and then try again. The thing that I see people run into a lot, especially when I'm helping fellow artists who are stuck on certain images or they send me an image and they don't know what's wrong, is they don't pause in order to figure out where they need to fix something or gain more knowledge to improve whatever they're lacking. So if you think about it in kind of this cycle that I mentioned, usually these folks are stuck in the like apply, absorb parts of the cycle, and they're never pausing to assess. So they draw whatever, it looks like garbo, and then they're like, obviously I need to go study anatomy, and they try to study arms for like an entire day and just pour that information into their brain thinking that they're going to get better. They get bored, they get demotivated, they get frustrated, they have an expectation that they're going to improve drastically because they did all this studying. But that's not how this cycle works. There are incremental improvements that need to happen, and each time you try to apply that information, it solidifies a little bit more in your brain. So yes, okay, you may have put the pieces together, but you're sitting there going, all right, Snow, so you're just trying to tell me to practice more? Well, yes, but I'm trying to tell you to practice more with a little bit of a purposeful mindset behind the practicing. Know why you're practicing something, and when you're studying something, really make sure the thing you're studying is the thing that you need to improve. Okay, that's kind of general. So let's go back to the arm example. So say I'm drawing these arms, again, sausage links, wow. I look at some photos and I realize that there's this rhythm between, the biceps and leading into, the lower arm and into the wrist and into the hand. So instead of trying to break down the entire arm and focus on all of the forms of the arm, I pick this one thing and make sure that the next time I draw that arm, or I'm going back to fix that arm that is in my original photo, that I'm applying that specific knowledge to my picture. That way, I'm kind of locking in that piece of information. I'm contextualizing it with the image that I am excited to draw, and it's creating that context for the next time I want to draw something with this same problem, that I can remember back to the specific instance and remember that specific piece of information. By being mindful of this kind of cycle of learning, it will help you improve faster than simply just drawing whatever you want, whenever you want, which is fun, and there's a time and a place for that. But without that critical thinking of figuring out where you need to improve and finding that knowledge of how to improve, then you'll just improve gradually as you kind of vaguely notice things that if you draw it this way instead of that way, it looks a little better, but you're not sure why. You'll also improve faster than if you're just doing studies all day. You'll get really good at doing studies, but if you find studies super boring, you may start to become, demotivated and not excited to draw. So having a smaller cycle where you draw a thing, realize what you need to improve, figure out how to learn that information, and then go back and apply that information, then you'll be able to see these smaller increments and you'll achieve those expectations that you set for yourself because they're smaller goals and they're more realistic expectations. A lot of times after doing an entire day of studies, I try to apply it to some epic thing that I'm doing, and it just doesn't go all that well because I'm just trying to apply too much all at once. And I need time for my brain to kind of absorb what's going on. Plus, I need time for my muscles and my hands to catch up in terms of finesse and just mechanical practice. It's also important to note that not everyone's brain is exactly the same. Not everyone learns the same way as everyone else does. But this was something that I discovered and tried on a whim and realized that I was making considerable progress compared to the way I used to do it, right? The definition of insanity is repeating actions and expecting different results. So I tried this new thing It worked for me. My ADHD brain decided that this was something that was tangible and it created that context. And I was able to make improvements that I could see, which made me happy, which made me want to do art more. So overall, positive feedback loop, right? I think the biggest thing that a lot of the art community is suffering from are beginner artists, especially beginner artists, come into this sea of information. They hear a lot of experienced artists saying, you need to practice, you need to do studies, you need to put the miles in, you need to study more, you need to blah, 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 blah. And they're drowning in this expectation that they have to be constantly studying in order to get better. And it's really overwhelming, especially when they're not using a good foundation for learning. So helping people, your fellow artists, realize that there's a difference between studying and learning, and there is an approach and a mindset that can help you improve faster and better and in a way that makes you actually realize that you're improving, I think creates a better environment for those artists that are struggling in that step where they know something is wrong. Maybe they're not quite sure what's wrong, but they need a little bit of help where they don't know what they don't know and no one's around to tell them other than this general advice of go do studies. So I think, more artists could really benefit from having that critical thinking skill that they don't teach in schools. And it would help them stay motivated and help them gain the confidence that they really can get better at art and do better at art and draw what they want to draw. They just need to make sure that, they're not overwhelming themselves, whether on purpose or an accident, and that they can use themselves as their primary support person to assess what's wrong with their art in order to make those improvements. I could talk on and on about learning and how to learn and how nobody's learned how to learn and the information just ends up in our brain somehow and suddenly we're, graduating high school and have no idea how to actually study for exams or tests or anything in college. But alas, I hope this helps someone out there. And if you try the AAA approach, if you try studying to learn rather than for the sake of studying, let me know how it goes in the comments. I am curious how people learn or how people absorb information and retain that information and are able to apply that information in order to make themselves better. Brains are wild, yo. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are less bogged down by studies in the future. And I hope I see you next week. Till then, Snow Mew out.